G'day guys and welcome to the Boundary Riders Podcast. Today we're up to episode 15 and we just completed round 13 with the Big Freeze as the final match of the round. Probably one of the games of the season. Melbourne just got over the line against Collingwood in one of the best games of the season in my opinion. Melbourne stood up, probably really against the odds without Clayton Oliver, and Collingwood gave it all they'd had. But to be honest, I think Melbourne won that one pretty easily. How did you think the round went?
Yeah, it was a couple. Pretty good round, really. Entertaining finish to the round.
Yeah, we saw Port Adelaide as well. Equal top now.
Yeah.
And the Crows annihilate the Eagles.
Yeah, well, I think we could all see that coming. We could always see that coming as a car crash, and I think it turned out to be even worse.
Yeah, I think when that was lined up as a Crows game at Adelaide Oval, it was always going to be a flogging.
If it wasn't a 100-point loss, I think Crows would have been sad about it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But nonetheless, now we're getting into round 14, which is this week coming up. But before we get into our tips and all that sort of stuff, looking over the last round and all that sort of stuff, I thought it would be a good idea to maybe do a prediction of what we could expect for the rest of the season. So I'm sure a lot of you actually have done this at the start of the season, but there's a website called Squiggle, which I know sounds a bit weird, but they have this awesome ladder predictor that you can go onto and you can predict every single match for the rest of the season from here on. And me and my brother have actually done that. So we're going to talk about that first of all today. I'm going to go through it first, mine, and on the screen on the left-hand side, we'll quickly reveal our prediction for the rest of the season. So on screen right now is mine. And the top four is actually the same for me. You've got Collingwood, Port, Melbourne and Brisbane. That's the current one. The next four could be a bit different. I think definitely some people would disagree with this, but the Crows are 5th, the Saints are 6th, Geelong 7th and the Bulldogs scrape in 8th. Then after that, to just miss the finals, we have Essendon, Fremantle, Gold Coast with all 12 wins, one game outside of the 8. Then we've got Richmond in 12th, Sydney 13th, GWS 14th, Hawthorn 15th, Carlton all the way down in 16th, and then North Melbourne and West Coast to round out the full ladder. Now, obviously, I'd like to think that's how it's going to end. Probably not. I'd rather the Swans finish in the 8, but I don't think that's going to happen. I'll just go over a few things quickly. So basically, the most important ones, I would say, or the ones that maybe people would question. So the one that I think most people would say is a bit off, maybe, is the fact that the Crows are 5th. Now, the Crows aren't going to... Now, the reason why they're there is because, one, they will win all their games at home. And the other games that they don't have at home, I think they have West Coast again. They also have North Melbourne. I think the North Melbourne game's not... I think it's in Melbourne. I can't really remember looking at it now. But, they win those games. I'm pretty sure that they win those games. They do have Collingwood at the MCG, which I've put down as a loss. But the fact is, after their bye, the Crows have a really easy run running into the rest of the season. So I'm thinking that they're going to push for finals. And I did give them a couple of 50-50s. I think in the showdown, I've actually given them the win there. That obviously could... That's a 50-50 game at the moment. And against Essendon in Victoria, I think I gave them the win as well. But of course, that could be a bit different, and maybe that would be Essendon deciding if they make the 8 or not. The next one is the Cats. The Cats will just scrape into the 8. I think they'll finish 7th at the moment, and that's only because they've got quite a few games down in Geelong. They've got Melbourne down in Geelong. They've got the Essendon down in Geelong, which I think are 50-50 games. But down in Geelong, I think they have the advantage. So that's why the Geelong have just scraped into the 8. Fremantle haven't made my top 8 this season. Now, the reason is because they do have a few games in Perth, but I think the games in Perth are the games that they should win anywhere. And the games that they play in Victoria, in interstate for the rest of the season, like, for example, the Bulldogs, they play them in Melbourne sometime throughout the rest of the season. I don't think they pull that one off. And there's a couple of other games there where I don't think Fremantle can pull outside of their home state, so that's why they haven't made it. And finally, probably the biggest one is the Essendon. Now, Essendon are in very good form at the moment. Obviously, they just beat Carlton as well. A lot of people are probably jumping on the bandwagon that Essendon are going to make it, but They have the bye this week, and then after that, for 6 weeks after that, they have Fremantle in WA. They have the Bulldogs at Marvel. They have Port Adelaide. They have at the MCG. Adelaide at Marvel. Geelong in Geelong, and then the Western Bulldogs at Marvel once again. Now I don't know why they played the Bulldogs in 5 weeks. I don't think that's I don't know what the fuck that is all about.
Great scheduling.
Great scheduling by the AFL, but on paper at the moment, I don't think they win any of those games. Now I know that's a bit of a tough thing to say. They very well may win, 4 or 5 of them and be giving themselves a chance right in the 8. But for me, right now, looking at it, I gave them all losses. So that's the only reason why Essendon missed the 8. Because their final 5 weeks, I think they win all of them. I think they have Sydney, West Coast, North Melbourne, and a couple of others in there, in those final 4 or 5 rounds. So I give them all of those wins. But the games that are going to be, those next 6 weeks are going to be really interesting, and we'll decide if Essendon make it. And then finally, with the Gold Coast, at the moment, the Gold Coast, Dockers, and Essendon only miss out by the 1 game from the Bulldogs and Geelong in the top 8 from this. So if the Gold Coast that we've seen before their bye, they were getting in a bit of form, if they can pull off a couple of games, they could very well make the 8. Same goes for Fremantle. If they can pull a couple of games outside of WA, they're very well on their way to making finals. And Essendon, I think they're probably the biggest chance out of those teams that missed the 8 to actually just snag a spot. Yeah. But yeah, the Bulldogs are probably my biggest disappointment if they finish 8th, because they should be making top 4 in my opinion. They've got the list, they've got the management, but they just don't win. They've lost their last 3 now.
Yeah,
I think they're in deep trouble.
They're in horrible form at the moment.
Yeah, which we'll talk about just after my brother goes through his prediction for the rest of the year. But yeah, those are my rest of the season predictions. We'll get into yours. So
let's
on screen right now is Jack's.
Yeah. So at the moment, I think the top 4 is about the same, just a different order. I think Collingwood finished top, Melbourne, then Port Adelaide and Brisbane. To round out the bottom 4 of the 8 is Geelong, St Kilda, Freo, and I think Essendon just slip in. So the bottom 10, I think the Crows and Western Bulldogs are a game out. And then from 11, it's Gold Coast, Richmond, Sydney, Giants, Carlton to start the bottom 4, Hawthorn, North Melbourne, and West Coast.
And you have seen there, the West Coast have actually got an extra win there.
Yeah.
So you think West Coast will pull one more?
I've looked at the rest of the season. I think North Melbourne come up against West Coast in Perth, and I think they'll snap that win. Because by that time, it's in a couple of weeks, it's near the end of the season. I think by that time, Adam Simpson will be gone. And I think that, I don't know who will take over, I don't know who that will be, but I think they might just scrape in that win.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
But they'll still finish bottom with percentage because they're getting flogged every week. Yeah. 3 times already this season they've been flogged by 100 points. It's not like great reading for them. Yeah. So, but looking at it, I think...
well, first of all, because I had the Crows so high up, you put them 9th. What
ninth.
Have you got them?
I've looked at their fixtures, and I don't think they win any of their games away, except the last round when they play the Eagles. I think that they'll lose this week against the Pies, because I don't think they'll win in Melbourne.
Yeah.
I think they play Essendon in a couple of weeks at Marvel. I think if it was at the MCG, I would be saying it may be a bit different, but because on Marvel, I think Essendon play better there.
Yeah.
They play the Melbourne in Melbourne and Brisbane at the Gabba. I just think they haven't shown this season that they can win away, and I just don't think they're going to. And they need to be able to snap one of those games away for them to be probably snap at the 8. So I just don't think that they're generally going to be able to do that.
Yeah. Yours is interesting because you've got Fremantle and Essendon in the 8.
Yeah.
I've got them out of the 8. So go to Essendon. What's Essendon making it?
Essendon, I think against the Bulldogs at Marvel, I think they might be able to get that win because I don't think Western Bulldogs are playing that well, and they do have a pretty easy run home, really.
I think 4 of their past 5 games they've got against teams out in the bottom 6.
I think that Yeah, I think the two games that come down for them are against Freo in Perth and the Crows in Melbourne. If they can win one of those games in the next 5 weeks, I think that should be enough to pull them over the line in the finals. Yeah. I think they will lose first round because they always seem to, because that's their record in the finals. But I think
it was is it 2000 since they've won a final.
Yeah, something like that, and it was like 70, like in the late 70s since they did it without Kevin Sheedy. So yeah. It's not great reading for them. For the Freo, I think they win most of their games at home. Obviously, they always seem to. I don't know. They just seem to be the team that you can't really rely on them away from the G. I just think that if they can do the games at home, they should win easily. The games away, they might have to snap one or two of them there, so it'll be interesting. I think that there's a game against Brisbane in Perth, and I think they might be able to get that win to make sure that they get the final spot. Yeah. I think the Gold Coast are they're too early again. I think I think they've done a bit opposite what they normally do and finish off well. I think the bye is come at the worst time for them.
And I think they've just hit their red hot form.
Yeah, they hit their red hot form, and I think that's when they're going to, not crumble, but there's just a few games that their run's a bit difficult, I think. That
if you look at it, they've got
their last 6 weeks, 5 weeks. They've got Brisbane, the Crows in Adelaide, Sydney, the SCG, Carlton, and they finish off with North Melbourne and Tasmania. You're probably looking at that record, they'd have to win at least 4 of those, I think. And yeah.
I mean, if the Gold Coast can keep the form that they had before the bye, I'd give them actually a real chance of making their first final series, because they do have a couple of games that they should win. They get Carlton twice, they get North Melbourne, they get Sydney, which I know but Sydney aren't in that good a form this year. They've got the Giants, and they've got the Pies away at home. Yeah. Which, I'm not saying they're going to win that, but they've got a better chance against Collingwood at home than they do at the MCG.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just think the Gold Coast are going to find it a bit tough later in the season. I'm kind of like you, how you said that, they've started off the season really well, but can they continue that form off the end of the season? The last one I'll ask you about, though, is Geelong, because you put them in 5th. I had them right down at 7th.
Yeah.
How have you put Geelong?
How have I went Geelong? So, I think they win... what if I went for them? So I think they
Port this week.
Yeah, I think they will. I'll explain that a bit later though. Why I've went Geelong over Port Adelaide, even though it is an Adelaide Oval. But I just think that some of their games are just a bit easier. Like some of the games that they play at Gdynia Park, which I don't think is really fair, because they play 5, 6, 7 of their last games at Gdynia
I don't
Park.
know why they don't spread them throughout the season. Yeah, why don't they put them all at the end just to give them a better run?
I don't know. But I think they normally start slow, which they have this season, and they come with a rush, and I think that's going to happen again. I think, against Collingwood in round 22, I think they get that win at the MCG. I think they'll just be in good form enough to get the win for that one. I think
against Port at the Gdynia Park.
Yeah, I think they only lose 2 more times for the rest of the season. I think they'll lose to Melbourne, even though that's in Geelong. I think they'll lose that game, and I think they'll lose against Brisbane at the Gabba. I think, besides from them two, I think they win them all. Yep. So, yeah.
So at this stage, basically, we've got our top 4. We think it's set for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
And then we think, basically, that 7 to maybe 11 are probably the only teams now that can make it.
Yeah, I think so. It's just going to be, some of the teams have an easier run. I think Essendon, they should be able to make it because of their easy run. They just might have to, the next 5 weeks you were saying, they just might need to scrape one of those wins, and I think with Peter Wright being back helps that.
He was huge on the weekend. That game. That was insane.
Mm.
But guys, that's our predictions for the rest of the season. Obviously, I would doubt highly that we'd get that right. Obviously, some team could pull something out of the bag and pull a massive win, as everyone would see. But those are our predictions for now. But let's move on and talk about this week, and we'll get into the weekly votes. So this week, we had a couple of teams have the bye, which was the Gold Coast and Geelong. But we started on Thursday night, way back, with the Swans versus St Kilda. Now, I was really thinking the Swans would come back after the bye with a vengeance. for Buddy's 350th, and Buddy sounded like a house on fire. But after that, Sydney just couldn't convert on the scoreboard, and they wasted their opportunities, and that's their finals done and dusted. They can't make it from here.
Yeah, it's horrible. Yeah,
it's terrible from Sydney. I thought they'd bounce back this year after the terrible grand final, but it doesn't look like they're going to. I think that look, maybe to an extent they got there a year or two too early, because their team's such a young list. But they should be beating St Kilda at home. I think that they should have beaten St Kilda, and they had them at half-time. They were playing better footy than the Saints. But the Saints came back. Credit to them. Ross Lyons got them humming a little bit. And this year, maybe the Saints can continue their run from the bye. They didn't last year. They lost, I think, 8 of their last 11 games and didn't make finals. So we'll see if they can do it again. Did you watch this game?
No, but I obviously saw the big highlight,
Dan
spotlight.
Butler,
Yeah, I just a couple of hours ago he was free to play now, so that's
So that's good to see.
Yeah,
it never should have been a week.
No,
I mean, we watched this game. I watched this game. I saw it live. That anyone could even think that was a free kick is ridiculous. He's brought into ground.
I did hear about Jordan Lewis. He thinks that should have been a week.
He's an idiot. He's an idiot. That was weak as piss from fucking the AFL. I've even given him a week. That was a great tackle from Dan Butler. Nick Blakey was holding the ball 100%. He got taken to ground. His head, I think, hit the ground. But that doesn't... head knocks are going to happen in the game. It's a physical sport. It's a contact sport. It's going to happen. Dan Butler's tackle was a brilliant tackle. It should have been a holding the ball decision, and St Kilda should have gotten the free kick. Yeah. And that's coming from a Swan supporter, as you can see in the background there. That's coming from a Swan supporter, alright? Yeah. So that was a ridiculous call.
I had to watch the replay like 3 times because I didn't... the first time I looked at it, I was like, wait, what did they pay for... I just didn't get it. And then... I don't know. I think you're losing the fabric of the game if that was going to be a week. Yeah. If you're going to. Because they already got rid of the bump. You can't get rid of the tackle.
Yeah, exactly. I just think that was a stupid decision. But thank God that they actually had some common sense and they reversed the decision of giving Dan Butler a week. So he'll be back for the Saints this week against whoever they're playing. I can't remember. We'll talk about it later. But nonetheless, the votes we get to now. The one vote I gave to Owens. Owens was brilliant in this game. He was playing as a second ruck. He has been all season. I think he's a smoky for the Rising Star. I don't know if he'll get it because I think that maybe the likes of Sheasel and Ashcroft will get talked about a little bit more, and maybe a few others. But this guy's on a roll. He was playing brilliantly last on Thursday night, and he just getting back to the play, like getting back with a flight, helping out his defense, taking marks. He may not have had the most amount of disposals, but he was brilliant in this game, so I gave him the 1 vote. 2 votes I gave to Cal Wilkie. At the start of this game, Buddy started off pretty well. He got 2 goals early, and I thought this was actually a time where Buddy Franklin could show a little bit of his old form, his old self. But Cal Wilkie just shut him right down. Just shut him down from quarter time. Buddy Franklin hardly got near it. I think he only had about 3 or 4 touches in the second half. And he just patrols that back line so well, Cal Wilkie. If he doesn't make the All-Australian team, it's bullshit, because he was brilliant in this game against the Swans. And finally, I actually gave the 3 votes to Wanganeen Malira. He played really well off half-back, and he's been brilliant for the Saints this year.
Yeah.
Some people may have thought that Brad Crouch would have got it because of the fact that he had a lot of touches, but I think that these 3 guys here actually were the 3 best players on the ground. This isn't exactly 100% a midfielder's award. Yes, a midfielder may well win this award at the end of the season, but Wanganeen Malira was brilliant off half-back, especially in the second half. He really rose when Sydney decided to tag Jack Sinclair in the first half. They shut him down pretty well, but then in the second half, Sinclair wasn't really much of an influence, but they didn't really need him. It showed that Wanganeen Malira could really rise up, and he really set up the win for the Saints in the end. So those are my 3 votes for that one. On Friday night, Port Adelaide got their 10th win in a row, which I think is a club record.
Yeah.
A club record for the Power. The Bulldogs did play okay. They did keep with the Power for a lot of this one, but in the final quarter, they just shunned through the talent of the Port Adelaide. It's amazing to think that last year Ken Hinkley was thought of being sacked, and now he is
even round 3. We'll think
round 3 they were thinking he was going to get sacked, and now he is one of the best coaches in the comp at the moment.
Yeah, everybody said Kane Corns came out this week and said they're just signing for a couple more years. I don't think we're that good. It's gone that good, but it's getting close. He's done very well on the coach, and it seems that all the players are getting around him as well. So
I think that Port Adelaide are definitely a force to be reckoned with, especially now that Collingwood did lose on the weekend. Port Adelaide are equal top. It's going to be hard to beat them at Adelaide Oval. And if they can continue, if they can just win a couple of their games away from home, they're so up top too pretty well easily from here. But nonetheless, the 3 votes. 1, I gave to Bunkus Bontempelli. He was very good in the middle of the ground in this one. He came in that third quarter and he he could have dragged them over the line in the final quarter. In the third quarter, they chucked him forward. He had a very good first half in the midfield of the ground, and then they chucked him forward for some reason. Had no influence on the game.
Did they not learn anything from earlier in the season? I guess not.
I don't know why Luke Beveridge does that. It's like Marcus Bontempelli is one of the best midfielders in the competition. You don't chuck him forward. You've got enough tall guys up there. You don't need Marcus Bontempelli up there. But nonetheless, he was brilliant in the last quarter. He did bring them back into this one, but Port Adelaide eventually shone through. Bontempelli was very good. But one player for the Bulldogs who was better was Tom Liberatore, who got the 2 votes. He was very good in this one, Tom Liberatore. Clearances, he was getting the ball forward. He was probably the best player in the first half of anyone on the ground. And he just got the ball forward. He was getting a lot of clearances, as he always does. He was pretty good ball use as well. And I think he did kick a goal at one stage as well, I believe. But the 3 votes went to probably the best player in the competition at the moment, Zach Butters. He was brilliant.
He's too good.
Zach Butters is one of the players to be reckoned with this season. I think he's definitely up there with the Brownlow favourites. We've got Bontempelli, Christian Petrarca, Dacos, even Jordan Dawson from the Crows, and maybe even Clayton Oliver if he can come back in the second half of the season and dominate. But Zach Butters is a force to be reckoned with at the moment, and the Bulldogs did try to tag him in this game, but it didn't make a difference. He just dominated this game of footy, and him and Connor Rozee were very good. Rozee was probably about 4th or 5th in this game, but I just think that Zach Butters arguably carried Port Adelaide to this win. And then after that, we got to probably one of the upsets of the season almost. It was the fact that Hawthorn went on and beat Brisbane. Now, this wasn't the MCG, so it's not exactly a game. It wasn't a huge upset because Brisbane have won, I think, 1 of their past 13 games in the MCG. But
it's a concern though now. I think not to win at the MCG. It's a concern.
I mean, they beat Melbourne last year. We know how bad Melbourne were at the end of last season, and now they've came out and have lost to Hawthorn. And this is after the bye when they needed a win after the loss to the Crows before their bye to come back and play Hawthorn and then not win this game when they had a pretty good lead at stages in the third quarter. That's not good enough from Brisbane.
Yeah, I would have rather put my certainty on something else, but I guess some people are just idiots.
I should have put it on the Crow. I don't know why he did that.
He was just
that was a dumb decision, but nonetheless. In this game, I gave the 1 vote to Jarman Impey. He was very good playing off half-back. It looks like he's got a new role. He did play as like small defender, but I don't think that's his role.
He's just not that. And I think it's taken him a long time in AFL terms to find his spot, but I think he's fine. He's found it.
Yeah, that rebounding defender. Maybe it's because Jaff hasn't played a lot of games this season.
He's been a bit injured.
He's been a bit in and out, so maybe that's why he's got that spot, but he took it in spades. 2 votes I gave to Josh Dunkley. I think that he has probably been Brisbane's best this year. I know it took him maybe a week to a month to get right into it, but I think now Josh Dunkley is really shining through.
Yeah.
And the 3 votes gave to captain of Hawthorn, most important player of the side as we see. Yeah. They lost last week without him, but this week James Sicily was brilliant.
Yeah, and it's sad that he's got injured. He's got suspended, looks like, again for going to the tribunal. So
he's going to be 3+ weeks of this rate, James Sicily, and I think Hawthorn's hopes of winning both the games in the next 3 weeks is probably shot.
Yeah, slim to none.
I don't think they win many of their games.
He seems like the most influential player in the comp for a single team. So
he was massive in that game. He got the 3 votes. After that, we won't talk too much about this game because
car crash.
It was basically over. I mean, Crows won against West Coast, as we all know. I mean, it was good to see the mid-season draftee Ryan Marriott came in. He kicked 2 of the 8 goals for West Coast. So, I mean, that shows how poor the West Coast are going. If a guy who was 3 weeks ago playing in Victorian League football has came into the AFL system and has kicked 2 goals in an AFL side.
Yeah, he kicked the first goal for him.
Yeah, he kicked the first goal of the game. So, I mean, Crows win. They won it pretty easily. They had to do that. They got a good percentage boost to this one. I'll just go through the votes quickly. 1 vote I gave to Ben Keys. He's definitely risen in the past month.
Yeah.
Going into the midfield. I don't know if he played much of a tagging role in this one. He was just, I think, got a free rein this game, and he played really well. 2 votes gave to Rory Laird. He was very good in the midfield, as he always is. And the 3 votes we gave to, obviously, Taylor Walker. You can't really give anyone else the 3 votes if you kick 10 goals. I mean, look, I think that any team this season, I think 17 teams right now actually have a chance of winning a game against anyone at the moment. I honestly think that North Melbourne could pull a game against the top team because I actually think that North Melbourne have some attributes. West Coast are just shot. They're done. And it's really pathetic. I think the AFL could almost bring in a relegation system.
They can bring in Tasmania. I think a Tasmanian team next week, and they'd probably win it the way they're fucking going. They just use the resis that Tasmania have.
Yeah, it's pathetic. Yeah. It's basically just not. You might as well just mark down.
There's no way Adam Simpson runs out the season. I'm sorry, they just can't. I don't care about the injuries. He can't be coaching by the end of the season.
We've seen injuries for other clubs, and they're not losing by 120 points. Yeah. They're showing a bit of effort. That's just crap.
Yeah.
After that, though, we'll move on. Fremantle versus Richmond, and Richmond pulled off another win. They won 2 in a row now. They beat Fremantle over in Perth. To be fair, though, Fremantle did not start this first half. They barely even showed up. And
it was shades of earlier in the year for Freo, wasn't it?
It was. They did come back in the second half and gave Richmond a real shake, but Richmond in the last quarter just got away far enough that Fremantle couldn't drag them back. In this game, 1 vote I gave to Toby Nankervis. He was brilliant in the ruck. Arguably, if he wasn't injured earlier in the season, I think he'd be up there with All-Australian form.
Yeah.
Also with Tim English being in brilliant form, I still think it's Tim English to beat. But Toby Nankervis has definitely risen this season, probably in career best form. He's getting a lot of clearances. He's not giving away as many free kicks. He still is, though, but yeah, he's been brilliant this season. 2 votes I gave to Tim Taranto. Now, they'd be a bit surprised that I didn't give him the 3. He was very good in this game, playing in his clearances, getting his touches. He was very good in this one. But the 3 votes who I think had the most influence on the game, and I think dragged them over the line in the last quarter, was Shea Bolton. He had 13 touches in the last quarter, kicked a goal, dragged them home. I think Shea Bolton is one of those players that people can question at times, and I think it's warranted. But when he's playing good, he's one of the best players in the comp.
Yeah, he's a very entertaining player, and when he plays midfield, he shows why the hell he's the most influential player in most games sometimes.
Yeah. After that, we get to Sunday, North Melbourne versus Giants. North Melbourne actually did stay with the Giants till about half-time, and then the Giants actually put on a lot of pressure. Giants were very good in the second half, and I think Adams Kingsley is definitely getting that game plan that the Giants need, which is a lot more harder football and not so much fancy kicking football. They need to play tough, and I think he's the right coach for the job because he seems like a tough guy.
And I think, obviously, putting his Toby Green as captain, I think it just had to happen, and both of them together, I think it's a great combo.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Toby Green, he was in the votes, but the 1 vote I did give to Stephen Cornelio. He was very good in this one. He also had 3 goal assists, which I think is a very underrated stat.
Yeah.
Playing through the middle of the ground, he's been brilliant this season, Stephen Cornelio. I think it's just a weight off his shoulders not being captain anymore.
It's shown, yeah.
And he's also playing in the midfield, which is his position, not off half forward.
Yeah.
He's a midfielder. 2 votes I gave to my new favourite player in Kieran Briggs. I've got him in as an AFL Fantasy team at the moment. He has been brilliant in the past 3 weeks. Kieran Briggs was massive in this game. He was getting a lot of clearances. He got it forward and he was kicking goals, which is an underrated stuff.
Whatever.
If anyone in AFL Fantasy needs to get some money, maybe just get rid of Tim English for a fortnight.
Yeah.
No, nonetheless, he was very good. But the 3 votes in the end, I think, had to go to Toby Green. Kick 4 goals, win this game once again. I think that he's probably the most important player for anyone in the competition at the moment. If he's not playing for the Giants, they won't win.
Yeah, well, he only had a couple touches in the first quarter, but he just, when he turns it on, he can turn it on. Yeah, he can wheel him over the line.
Yeah, I think that he even did take a pay cut a couple of years ago just so he could stay with the Giants, which I think is a very underrated thing to do. And I think in the next couple of years, I think the Giants could be pushing for something because I think they've got a game plan now where it's actually a lot more pressure based than just fancy footwork and non-tackle football.
Yeah,
this is definitely something different. I think that the Giants could definitely rise very quickly, and I think they could steal a couple of games the rest of the season too. After that, we get to Sunday afternoon, Carlton versus Essendon. Carlton, once again, can't kick straight. No. 6 goals, 16. Shit football. Bad kicking is bad football, as I was saying when I watched it on stream. Harry Mackay, I don't know what he needs to do. Poor kicking. Charlie Curnow in the first quarter kicked 3 behinds. Could have given them a real start to this game. He kicked 3 behinds. Not good enough. Their structure going forward is woeful. I'm sure everyone's seen the fact when Akers kicked it inside the forward 50 in the third quarter, I believe. And Matt Owies and Charlie Curnow both standing there. They both left it and went out the back. Bloody pathetic football from Carlton. And I don't actually think that they should sack Michael Voss. I don't think it's his fault. I think there's a culture problem at the Blues, and they need to look a lot more in depth than just sacking a coach again. I think that's actually the wrong decision because we've seen that they can sack as many coaches as they want. It doesn't make a bloody difference. They're not making finals. They're not a culture that is brought for finals. They're too selfish. The Carlton are way too selfish. They're too busy getting touches in the middle of the ground, handballing around to each other, and then wasting the football going forward.
Yeah.
They're wasting the potential of Harry Mackay. They're wasting the potential of Charlie Curnow. And yes, I know that they're kicking poorly as well, but they're still not using the potential to them at the best. Sam Walsh has played a pretty poor season, in my opinion. His averages are probably pretty high, but he's not doing anything with the football. Adam Chera is one of the most overrated players in the AFL. He's not doing shit with the football. And Paddy Cripps, I don't know what he's done, but he's not doing anything for Carlton at the moment. I think that they need to seriously look in what they need to do as a club, what they stand for, because the members are paying way too much money for watching that every week. That was a woeful game of football. And Essendon, it was a great win from them. I was happy to see Peter Wright back. He kicked 5 goals. He was brilliant.
Well, how pathetic is that? He hasn't played all year. He's been injured, and he kicks 5 goals in his comeback game. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. Like,
well, I saw after the game there was like a TikTok going like not viral, but it was going around that a bunch of Carlton supporters were screaming at the racers.
Yeah,
like the racers like telling them like you take off the jumper. Look, I don't think it's a very good thing to do, but I think they have a right to be angry.
At least they're showing a bit more passion than the bloody players are doing on the field.
Yeah, I think it's pathetic how some of the players are playing. They're playing woeful football. The fact that Matt Owies is, their best small forward is troubling. And I'm not saying that he's a very bad player, but if he's your best small forward, there's something wrong with the Carlton football team because. The thing is, their VFL team's actually doing pretty well. I think they're 5th or 6th at the moment. So they do have some young kids coming through, but they're playing Paddy Dow, who I think they probably should be in the team at the moment. I know that may be a big thing to say, but I think now's the chance when they play a couple of the kids, drop a couple of the big players, put them in the VFL, and see, or put them in some different positions and see what happens. It's time to chuck the magnets around, see what these players can do, and if they don't play well at the end of the season, ship them off somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because this team needs a massive overhaul. They're playing woeful footy at the moment. And like I said, I don't think they come out of the bottom 4. This team should be challenging for the 8 with the list that they've got at the moment. And I think they're going to struggle to win many more games this season.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, sorry for that bit of an outburst. It was a shocking game of football to watch, so I had to say something. But nonetheless, 3 votes. 1 vote I gave to Jai Caldwell. He has definitely risen in the past few weeks. Especially since the loss of Darcy Parish to injury.
Yeah.
I think Essendon's midfield is definitely maybe pretty young, but I definitely think there's a lot of upside coming for them in the next few years. Jai Caldwell, I got the 1 vote, and I think he's got a lot of upside as well, Jai Caldwell. 2 votes, maybe a bit surprising, but I did give it to Peter Wright. He got 5 goals. He was massive on return. The only reason why I didn't give him 3 votes is because one player on the ground who was absolutely amazing, and if he doesn't get an All-Australian spot at this stage, the All-Australian is a farce. No point watching it anymore. Because Nick Martin has been massive on the wing this season.
He's been amazing, hasn't he? Ever since he's come in since last year, far out, he's playing.
This guy was playing waffle football 2 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know.
He's one of the best wingmen in the comp.
I'll just say this: I don't know what the hell West Coast are looking at because you had the potential to have him. He was in your backyard all along.
Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking or what happened, but Nick Martin is one of the best wingmen in the comp.
Yeah.
He's arguably jumped over some of the better, the best ones like Ed Langdon, Lockie Hunter, Josh Dacos.
Yeah.
All those wingmen at the moment. I think Nick Martin's probably got the job as the number 1.
But what we're saying is, pick a wingman in the All-Australian. That's what we're saying here.
Yeah,
it's the
because
perfect
it's
time
supposed to be 18.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be a bunch of just midfielders crammed in there,
Yeah.
but he fit the spots. That's why I think the All-Australians should be picked by someone, but should be picked as a team, not as just a bunch of midfield positions. But finally, we get to the King's birthday game, the big freeze, which what it really is. Who cares about the King's birthday? It was a massive game. Great to see Neil Danaher out there. It's unfortunate now that he's not able to speak, but it was great to see him out there and enjoying the game. This was a massive game of football. It ebbed and flowed. I think a few people have said that Collingwood were never in this game because the only reason why they were is because Melbourne didn't kick straight. And yes, Melbourne didn't kick straight, but I still think Collingwood definitely were competitive in this one.
Yeah.
They did drop it though, and if it wasn't for the 2 late goals that Collingwood got, it may have probably had the scoreline probably look a little bit more representable of what the game was, because I think Melbourne were a few goals better.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, the 3 votes I gave to I gave to Braden Maynard. He was very good off halfback. I think he's been very good this season, Maynard, and I don't think he gets talked about enough. I know that we're obviously talking when it's Collingwood, it's Nick Dacos, or if we're even looking in the back half, it's Darcy Moore.
Yeah.
But he's been very good this year, and I think I'm a little bit surprised that Maynard actually wasn't not surprised, but just a little bit interested to see that he wasn't actually named as maybe a captain or a vice captain.
Yeah, I think he was obviously in the top 3. I think they obviously got the right person.
I think they picked the right choice. Yeah.
But it wouldn't have been a surprise if they picked Maynard.
Yeah. 2 votes I gave to Tom Mitchell. He seems to be actually getting a lot of his touches now that he's been meeting at Hawthorn, especially last few weeks. And he did stand up since the Degoe loss last week. So he was brilliant, Tom Mitchell, in this one, getting a lot of clearances, getting that ball out, getting that first touch to get the Collingwood out into space, which I think was very good in this game. But the one player who was massive in this game, who I actually said earlier in the call, because I was live streaming this one, he had to play an outstanding game to get Melbourne over the line. Jack Viney, he was massive in this game. Jack Viney had to stand up with the loss of Clayton Oliver. They were not very good the last few weeks, Melbourne. The 3 games before that one, they lost to Port, they lost to someone else, I can't remember, and they beat Carlton, but I mean, that's as well as beating West Coast at this point. But Jack Viney was massive in this game, and he got my 3 votes.
Yeah.
So it was a big weekend, but now we move into the tips for round 14. So, round 14 begins with a massive game at Adelaide Oval. Port Adelaide up against Geelong. Now, one thing for Port as well, other than being at Adelaide Oval, is the fact that Geelong have a terrible start after the byes. I think they've got a 2-6 record after the byes.
It's a 3-9 record. It is.
Yeah, so they're not very good off the bye, the Cats. Port Adelaide are into massive form. There may be some talk about the fact that the Port Adelaide have to lose eventually, but I don't think it will be at this game. I think they're going to go 11 in a row, and I think for a shorter period of time, they will take outright top spot.
I don't think they do. I think Geelong win. I think there's a few reasons why I still think Geelong can win this. Yes, they have a terrible record after the bye, but the last 3 years they have actually won half the bye. So the 3-9 record is technically a 3-0 record in the last 3 years. So they're playing better football after the bye. I think that's what's going to happen again this season. And Port Adelaide, yes, they have won 10 in a row, but they haven't come up against 2 big forwards. I don't think. Since the showdown, really, if you think about it, Phil Thorpe and Taylor Walker, Fogarty, all that. Yeah. So I just have that question mark for it. I don't know if Paddy Dangerfield's going to come back this week, but I think with the 2 tall forwards, Port Adelaide won't be able to cope, and it will be a close game. But I think Geelong will get over the line.
After that, we get to Friday night, Brisbane versus Sydney at the Gabba. Sydney are just in all sorts at the moment. They can sit there with their injuries, but they had a few back against St Kilda and they still couldn't perform. Errol Gordon was shut down well in that game, and it just looks like Sydney are all out of sorts. Yes, Brisbane have lost their previous 2 games, but this is back at home at the Gabba. They'll win this one pretty well.
Yeah, I think you just have to say it's at the Gabba.
Yeah.
Brisbane win, and I'm going to put my certainty on it.
Yeah, you pretty well think that Brisbane have got that one wrapped up.
Yeah, I think. Oh well, you never know. I think last time Sydney played there, they actually won. So
yeah, it was early last year. I think. 2 years ago.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. But I still think Brisbane win.
After that, we get to Saturday afternoon. GWS versus Fremantle. Big game for Fremantle. They have to win this game to keep in touch with the A.
Yeah,
and they have to win this one. But I'm actually going to be going with the Giants. I said a little bit earlier that the Giants are going to pull off a couple of games this year. They're going to nick a couple of games from teams, and I think this one's going to be one of them.
I've went 3-0. They'll be very disappointed that they lost last week against Richmond, and I just think they're going to respond. Yeah, I think a big... Because Darcy didn't play last week, did he?
No.
So I think if he doesn't play again this week, I might change it, but I think if he comes back, I think he's a big influence on their game, and I think with the clearance game that he gives to the likes of Brayshaw and Sarong, I think he could be the big difference in the game if he comes in.
After that, we get to Richmond versus St Kilda at the MCG. Big game for the Saints. If they need to pull this win, I think, because they need to hold their spot in the 8 by winning a lot of these games, like 50-50. I've actually tipped Richmond in this one because, 1, it's at the MCG, and 2, I don't know if the Saints' defence can hold up on the MCG. They obviously play on a slightly smaller ground on Marvel most of the time, and I think that's why they're pretty good against the Swans as well. But having the big ground at the MCG, I think Richmond can run through them.
Yeah, I think the St Kilda win. I think it's like the same as you. Like, you think that they're not going to be able to play better off the smaller ground or the bigger ground. I think that's going to help their game. I think I think the better team. I think the players like Wanganeen, Malera, and all that, if they can keep their width about them, they can get a better entries inside 50. And I think I just don't trust Richmond's defense at the moment. Yeah, they're playing good football, but I just think that I still think the influence of the new coach maybe still with them, and the defense of St Kilda should be able to win them the game anyway.
After that, we get to Sunday afternoon, Carlton versus Gold Coast at the MCG. This is a massive game. Maybe not on paper, but the Gold Coast, I think, almost have to win this game, and I think that they will. I think they're going to beat Carlton at the MCG. I know it's a big call for Gold Coast to go down to the MCG and win, but Carlton are woefully out of form.
Yeah.
The Gold Coast don't have the best record after the bye, but if the Gold Coast want to make their inaugural final series, they have to do it. They have to start this week. They have to go and beat Carlton. I think that the betting may not say that they're favourites, but I think that they should be.
Yeah, I've went Gold Coast. I think, like, you put all the scrutiny on Carlton, but we've been doing that the last 6 weeks. It's not made a difference, so why would you believe it would happen again this week?
Yeah.
And let's be honest, they can't kick straight. And in a windy area like the MCG, I just don't think they're going to be able to do it.
Well, I also think that the Gold Coast has one of the best defences in the comp.
Yeah, they're playing good contested football, Gold Coast, and, well, Carlton don't want to play pressure with any spirit, so it doesn't seem like they're going to change it this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And finally, we get to the final game of round 14, which is North Melbourne versus the Bulldogs. This is at Marvel Stadium, but I do think the Bulldogs will... this is at Marvel Stadium, and I do think the Bulldogs will bounce back after their 3 weeks off. Basically, they have not played good footy, the Bulldogs, in the past 3 weeks. They previously, before that, I think they won 5 or 6 in a row, but they were beating teams way below them.
And you think they're just going to do that again?
I think they will do that again. I think they'll come back with a win against North Melbourne. People will stop talking about them for a week, and they'll just glide their merry way. The Bulldogs, I don't think, are in very good form. I don't know if they're going to do much even if they do make finals, because I think that there's something else going on, but they'll win this game pretty well.
I think Bulldogs win. I just don't know about North Melbourne. They just they're just a young team. They just can't play 4 quarters. Will Phillips is interesting. He's playing good football in the midfield, but I just think that it's going to be interesting. It's going to be one in the midfield, and I just think the midfield, the more experienced midfield of the Bulldogs will win. Yeah, win them the game.
Alright guys, and finally let's move into the AFL Fantasy for this week. Now I had a pretty decent week off the buys. I got 2,050. I think my rank went up about 200, so I'm sitting at 1,213 at the moment. I had a pretty good week with Captain, with Taranto, 129, Zach Butters and Rosie, 120s as well. 120 to Butters and 120 to McRae. He was brilliant in this game. Kieran Briggs continues to impress with the 101. Roy Laird did well. I had a lot of 100s. Maybe the disappointments were Maybe Daniel. Oh, Tom Green was pretty disappointing, but he did get tagged. He got 73. Ashcroft got 74. A little bit disappointed by that. Errol Goulden with only 83 when he's had a really good month. I was a little bit disappointed by that. But nonetheless, George Wardlaw as well. He's got 97. I had to give a little shout out to that. He was brilliant. And Ryan Marriott got 50 on debut, which I wasn't really expecting anything higher than 40. So 50 I'll take against a team that got beaten by 120 points. But my trades this week were... I got rid of Campbell Chesser for Sheldrick. That was basically just because I knew Chesser was... even if he did play again this season, I don't think he's going to do much.
Yeah, he was a late in anyway, so...
I feel like Sheldrick actually on Thursday night, he actually played really well in the midfield for Sydney, and I think he'll get a few more games in a row. I mean, 79 fantasy points was actually really good, but he actually really played some good footy in there. So I think he'll get a couple more games in there. Angwin, I got rid of him finally. I did have to start thinking about next week as well with those players, so I had to just get rid of him. At this stage, I'm going to get Sam Sturt. That may well change very quickly. And finally, I got rid of Jaden Short. He did get 103 on the weekend, but he did kick 3 goals. I don't think he's going to kick 3 goals every week. So I did get rid of Jaden Short.
Didn't you only get him like 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, but they've changed since McWalters came in. He hasn't got much midfield time.
Yeah.
He's been moved back to, I think, half back. So, or half forward. So I don't think he'll get much more time in the midfield. So that's why I've got rid of Jaden Short. And I have picked up Lockie Neal because at this stage, his last 3 weeks, he's averaged 113. I think he is somewhat back. And I'm at least going to get him for the buys, at least for a couple of weeks, see how he goes.
Yeah.
And I mean, he is a guy who has averaged like 115 in the past, so I'm not exactly picking up a very bad player, but he is pretty low priced at the moment. So those are my trades this week. My captain at this stage will be Tim Taranto. And my vice, because it is Thursday night, it's going to be the earlier game. I'm going to give Zach Butters the chance. He has dominated the past few weeks. I'm going to throw my hat in the ring and hopefully he can pull it off. But that is my AFL fantasy team for this week. So what have you done?
Yeah, I was really disappointed in my week. I did have all 22 players, so that was okay, I guess. But I only got 1,957. It was like and I lost a bit of rank. I went back out to the 3,100, so really disappointed with that one. I was happy with Taranto as my captain. I was really disappointed at Tim English. I just thought he would have played better against Port Adelaide's ruckman. I really did.
You probably should have gone with Briggs.
Yeah, whatever.
I think he's still on the 700.
Yeah, whatever. Alright, who else was disappointing? Obviously Tom Green, that didn't help. But the one player I really was disappointed at was Will Phillips. At quarter time, he was on 38. He finished on 54. Like, what was he doing? Yeah.
Loser.
Really, seriously. I was happy with Sheldrick. I did get him last week, so he was on my bench. He got 79, obviously. So, yeah, I'll be taking that. He's going to get some cash now with getting that high score. So, hopefully that helps me in the weeks to come over the buys. And like you said, hopefully he just keeps his spot for, obviously, the buys to get me through. The trades this week, I got rid of Chesser. He's not getting any money. He probably wasn't going to play many more games. I did get Corey Warner just at the moment, depending on if he plays. I doubt he will. I got rid of Seamus Mitchell. That may change. I doubt it though. He's got a lot of money. He did play a pretty bad game. He got 60 odd. He's getting up there with the break even that he's not going to generate enough money. And I got a base player. That will change obviously of who plays. And I got rid of Harry Sheasel. I got rid of him because the last couple of weeks, yes, he's played more midfield time, but he just doesn't seem to be getting the high scores that he was getting off halfback. And Zeeble just seems to get it a bit more of kick-outs now. And I got Andrew Brayshaw, Freo player, he seems back in form. And yeah,
he had his buy earlier on.
Yeah, he had his buy earlier on, so that's why I also got rid of Sheasel because he's got his buy next week. So I need to set up for that one because I've got already 12 players already out of that next week, so it's going to hurt me.
We've actually got.
I've got the same. We play each other next week, so that's
in our
interesting.
league. So very interesting there.
Yeah, I lost mine this week. I really shouldn't have. I think because you get the top 18 scores. I had a better score. Like my scores were higher than what the other person had, so I lost because I generated too much score last week, so that was annoying. My vice, I've went on Butters and captain on Torino, so like you, for the same reasons pretty much. Thursday night footy, he dominated the last month or last 8 weeks of football, so
got to respect.
You got to respect the Butters.
Yeah. But yeah, guys, that's our podcast for this week. Maybe a little bit more of a shorter one, but yeah, we just wanted to do our predictions for the rest of the season. We're actually going to be doing another video recorded straight after this, so it'll probably come out on Thursday. We're actually going to be talking about the trade rumours and stuff, which I think we'll probably do every couple of weeks, maybe to a month, just for the next couple of months. And then when obviously towards the end of the season, we may even do it every week, just if there's more trade rumours and stuff that come out. So make sure to check that out. Thanks for watching today's podcast. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed it. Leave a comment about something if you want to know more about the podcast or anything you want to hear our opinions on. Make sure to let us know. Thanks for watching. But for now, hope your team wins this week. But that's all from us. We'll catch you all next time.
See you later, guys.